um,
Right. So Ted,
in
give
my
us,
current role.
yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us where you've been, because Renee knows a little bit about you, but just tell us
Yeah.
from where you've come from and where you believe you can actually be of most usefulness to getting people, from the state of California employed in the disciplines and the lesson plan stuff that we've been talking about, especially the Apple Distinguished Educator thing, because
Yeah.
you're the capstone.
So many hats. So Renee, it's wonderful to meet you. You actually probably have more hats than I do. Most of my hats are in previous roles, but currently I'm the Vice President of Student Services and Success at
Mhm.
Calbright College. And so Calbright's the 115th community college. We're the only one that's fully online, focused on competency-based education.
Mhm.
So in my role at Student Services and Success, I do all the services outside of learning and instruction. So counseling, careers, accessibility, veterans,
Mhm.
enrollment, student engagement, and the community there. I work very closely with our learning and instruction team, as well as our workforce strategy and innovation team. I probably messed up their title, but so
I know
for
we got lots of titles and
yeah,
acronyms and everything else, so, totally understand. We're all seeking the same thing,
yeah. Yeah.
alignment.
Exactly. So I have colleagues, Michael Younger, who's the vice president of workforce and innovation, and he works most closely with the Department of Apprenticeships, but also in coordination with Jennifer Johnson. And Jenny is our vice president of government relations, and then on the learning and instruction side, of course, is there's a VP there, Shannon McCarty. But on my team, I have a team member, Himani Tavari, who used to work for the Department of Rehabilitation. She currently still collaborates with them here and there on times when our students are getting services from the DOR. And so that helps them at Progress. The whole goal of Calbright is short-term certificates and micro-credentials and as well as services that help you with your branding and
Right. I'm gonna
transferable skills.
let
Yeah,
me pause you for 1 second because this is a point of connection between you and I.
yeah.
Um, I am the point person with Department of Rehabilitation, so I don't know if you know Mark Ehrlichman. He's
I've been in a meeting with him. Yeah.
okay, Mark is one step down from Joe Javier, and Mark is one of my well, I've known him a long time, but he's coming into that inner circle of my best professional friends because he actually allocated 2 staff members with the authority to sign contracts to me as I go out and develop, because I understand the intersectionalities and
Yeah.
those spaces, so you and I can, I mean, if you're trying to do something, I'm connected.
That's awesome. We are always trying to do something because really it's our student body is essentially adult learners 25 to 49.
Mhm.
These are the students who have been really underserved, and so we have a high percentage of students who are Black, who are identify as Latinx. We're really trying to change what higher education is, and
Mhm.
really get away from the idea of it is purely an academic journey to one of it is really a career and skills journey. And so then in my realm, it's about really how do we build up students for that, for the confidence to learn and to reflect and to be able to advocate for yourself. So a lot of different things that I do. Previous to this, where I met Kevin was when I worked for Apple, and I was an organizational change manager. So I worked with educational organizations on, how to rethink what
Mhm.
learning looks like and what opportunities look like when you have more technology to provide equity. And so don't just buy technology. How's it going to change things? So uh, from there, it opened up the possibility of being able to work at Calbright, and I've now been here about 2 years and don't regret it whatsoever. It's been an amazing ride to really work with students who are 30, 35, who felt they were in a dead end job working fast food, is being a shift supervisor as good as it ever gets, and being able to work with them and talk to them about, what's your interest? What did you wish you could have done if you hadn't started that family, or if you hadn't had to jump into that job? And then
Yeah.
a lot of time they're like, well, there's this, I really liked technology when I went to school, or I hear things about CRM. What is that? And so you start talking to them, and now all of a sudden they're getting opportunities. So we have a partnership with Bitwise where they are employing some of our students in IT support and
Ooh,
moving
that
towards
might be one of our
Bitwise,
programs.
yeah, Bitwise is one of the people that,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's in coordination with the apprenticeship program. So we are currently still taking applications from our students and assuring them that yes, there's criteria, but you don't have to be perfect in everything. Apply, go for the interview, and see
Yeah.
what happens, and we're going to help prepare you, and Bitwise is going to help you. And so it's been such a wonderful thing to work with Michael Younger, our VP of Workforce, who his team really facilitated this. And then it comes to me and my team with Career Services on, okay, and also student engagement and alumni relations on, now how do we get the word out? How do we prepare our students? How do we develop a feedback loop so that when our students are placed, we're hearing from them, we're hearing from Bitwise, we're hearing from any other employers they're working with,
Yes.
that we can refine our programs to better support the needs that are out there.
Wow. So Renee, in a perfect world, Ted would have been in the meeting with Kelly yesterday.
I
About
know, I'm thinking that now, but
yeah,
it's
well,
not the only meeting we're ever going to have with
right.
Kelly,
Well, yeah,
because
right. So if you can explain what we did yesterday as best you can, and why we did it with Kelly. Explain who she is and how we could possibly get some lens on this population of people 25 to 49 for which Calbright was, constructed for. Because from what I know, all my apprenticeship initiatives are through people 16 to 24. Because that's the sweet spot. Those are the people through WIOA and through the lens that I have. I'm supposed to be focusing on those people. But what happens when they term out, when those 24-year-old people become 25, is what I'm really concerned about. Because I don't want to work with people who are termed out and then I have no connectivity to them. I need to find some place to send them to so that they can continue their journey. And so I think Calbright is a perfect example of what people need to know about. And you could be Northern, Southern California, Southern or Central California to take courses. Do you have to be in any geography, Ted, to be enrolled in Calbright?
No, we're fully online, and so that's really the key with Calbright. It's understanding that we have a lot of students in rural areas who are not getting the opportunities because their community college doesn't offer a certain program.
Wow.
So we're able to jump in, and right now we have limited courses that provide a certificate, mostly in technology, IT support, cybersecurity, CRM, data analysis. We're also moving towards some medical ones as well, like LVN, but we have some program pathways that we're going to be creating in the next year that focus on creativity, because the creative economy is another one where there are high barriers for the underserved. So we're working with currently with the Brick Foundation and a little bit with the Department of Education on a 3D animation, visual effects, and game design. And you think to yourself, really, like, aren't there other things out there that are higher, higher needs? And actually the creative economy is huge in California. So this is one of the bigger needs that are out there. So we're working on that. Hopefully we get that one done. We're trying to still find a subject matter expert to finish off the curriculum. But, so we're trying our best to address high level needs. We don't want to just have a certificate to have a certificate.
Yes.
What are the needs in California, and what are the needs in specific regions? And I bring that up because we're also exploring programs where, maybe there's a partnership with a specific area of California that has extremely high need and no way to create any training for it. So are there ways that we can jump in and do something quick there? That's a tougher one, because we would rather be fully statewide than then find some programs that may be limited, but it's a different model that we're exploring.
Right. We're looking at is the apprentice living in they either need to live in California, or you have to have the organization do business in California.
Yes.
I kind of look at it as California wants to tax someone. It's probably terrible for me to say, but with income tax season coming up, hey, what can I tell you?
Yeah, absolutely.
But in looking, and you really speak to my heart with your message, because I was, a full working adult, and I had a high school diploma, and I was making crappy wages that are creeping closer and closer to minimum wage as it's rising up. And that was then. But in order for me to make that career transition, I needed to go to school. I needed to get a degree. And I was sharing with Kevin, it's like, I've done it all. I've done online. I've done the hybrid where you're part in the classroom, part online, classroom only, weekends, did all of it, and ended up with a master's I never expected to get. But when you're looking at online education, what I would truly say, from my own personal experience, I found it to be 5 times the work of sitting in the classroom. So anyone who says that it's like, oh, it's online, or when they talk about the younger kids, oh, they didn't learn anything that year, they're online. It is the new frontier, and it is something that everyone needs to get familiar with.
Yeah.
So I'm totally on board with you, and I hear where you're wearing multiple hats, and I would venture to say you also, with your counselor / therapist, with some of the meltdowns and breakdowns that people have, just trying to move forward, trying to build something.
Yeah.
Trying to just hang on with competing needs.
Right.
Yeah.
So Ted, one of the things that I wanted to do just to find out, get your temperature, because I know that you have plans to leave the country, but for the time that you do have remaining here, we're in rapid ideation around the idea of a new potential pathway that is more hybrid for folks that are looking for growth areas and anything that can make them more competitive. So one of the things that I've been really focused on is how do we share with some of the stakeholders who agree that you could have interdisciplinary investigative certificates that would allow you to build, design portfolio material, but not just for the sake of having it, but for the sake of showcasing your skills, knowledge, and capabilities to people who are looking and don't know that they're looking for people who can be the Swiss Army knife. Because everything that I've learned about, community college is that it's all, siloed from one discipline to the other, and there's never any conversation about where do they intersect, because it's not structured that way. So we think the certificate, as well as the apprenticeship that we'd like to see happen, would include creative, tech, business, and maybe some other things that would allow people to get at least the certificate that would bundle these things together and show, somebody's ability to be able to produce the kind of product or ideation to innovation that we think is a time that is come where we need to showcase those people who have that ability. So I wanted to kind of think about how you could absorb that, what I've just said, and at the very least, see if we can find some student candidates who would be interested in a cohort and bring them, to a potential project or problem that they could, solve as a cohort, and showcase something called pre-apprenticeship, where it's not so much structure. Because we're structured, very structured right now by the Department of Labor. We have a registered apprenticeship in digital media editing, but we didn't fit in a category that would allow us to bundle all these things. So we realized that there's a lot of people who are digital media editors, but maybe that's saturation for us to look for editors. There's people who are now interested in doing something that has a growth curve and has maybe more something that you've mentioned about challenge-based learning, so that they can actually start to be exposed to new things, new opportunities to learn, and really produce the kind of results that people aren't asking them to produce. So that's kind of where I'm actually taking a lot of the things I've learned from you and talking to Renee's people, her boss, about the what if. What if we could actually pilot something with 30 people to create a new certificate, a new apprenticeship? So,
and to even take the concept of pre-apprenticeship and have that not be your minimum wage worker that you're upskilling, but have a pre-apprenticeship at a higher level that really is that transitional piece from a run-of-the-mill job to where you can go up into truly the higher paid occupations with or without a degree. And just everything is going so fast. Things can be scalable or connected in so many different ways, because I know for Kevin, it's like, yes, you do want to have a space for that student that is very raw and needs a whole lot of polish before they're even ready to sit in the chair and go through the apprenticeship and do the work. But why not imagine, really envision pre-apprenticeship also as something where you've got, let's say, adult learners or somebody who's in their early 20s. They have, some experience, but it's not enough to take them into that higher realm, and they don't even know how to conceptualize it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, it's important that, we're not starting from nowhere or from zero. We have some organizational structure where we're working with some of the institutions who are doing a lot more research and collaboration. And those are the things that I wanted to share with you as a takeaway, so that you can see that we're seeding some things that may not happen by the time you leave, but at least we're seeding some things through an aggregation of effort. And one of the things that I wanted to do, I'm going to put in the chat box. I was going to share screen, but I'll put in the chat box. This is, it's called the STEAM engine, but it's a National Science Foundation grant submission. And I've been given kind of the playbook and the narrative. I can't share it just yet, but if you look at this document, you can kind of see where this gentleman has put together a pretty strong team of institutions and divisions within those institutions that, are talking the kind of language that I've never seen or heard before. So are you able to click on and take a look at that? Because that is really powerful. The gentleman, he's the associate dean at the theater and film department, undergrad for UCLA. And his name is Jeff Burke. And we've been working with the UCLA Anderson School of Business in their sports media and entertainment department to put all of these people together, as well as the people at USC's theater and film school, to try and create some leadership around the area of what if and how we can start to blend some of these things together towards a certificate. So if you have interest or you have somebody in your team that can join us, we're convening next week. We have a meeting that will feature a follow-up with Renee's with Kelly. Is she your boss or?
We're still restructuring. My boss is on the program management side of the house with apprenticeship and innovation, and Kelly is she's not, oh, wait a minute, she's no longer the regional because they merged us into being an entire state. So she would be the director of strategic business partnerships within the apprenticeship and workforce innovation umbrella.
Right. She sits in Sacramento. So we had a meeting with her yesterday, just kind of helping her download some of the things in conceptual, but are now factual, as we put the NSF STEAM engine project as a lead for rallying some of these other institutions. Cal State Dominguez, we've been in conversation with them they got a grant, to help provide more solutions and for barriers in the digital divide. And there is the California State University Entertainment Alliance, which you're well aware of. But a lot of these organizations are so siloed in a way that they're working on initiatives, but we want one master initiative that we can get consensus on, that we can showcase 30 students taking a stab at we call it product-based learning, not project-based learning, that would allow them to get a certificate and, be able to pitch everything that they learned. And we believe that teaming these people, these 30 people together, young, old, capable, maybe some not as capable, but still have the capabilities to learn and do. But that's what I'm looking to do, is put together a team of 30 people who can really be almost an kind of an unscripted reality show, if you will, of people who, we can showcase how they came together under this particular ambiguous to some, but very focused to others, way of showing collaboration, teaming, and all the things that they can learn in a module competency-based structure to get them to finish this project. And we have one project in mind that is something that you participated in, which was ethnic studies. And so we're bringing ethnic studies back to our focus of producing a product that would deliver some content and maybe a piece for the state of California, California Department of Education, to look at a way to make ethnic studies more compelling. Using all of these,
it's dual, because it's California, but it's also at the national level, because within this product-based learning, as Kevin and I were talking and fleshing it out, using the practicum and of Executive Order 9981. So where Kevin already has material to work with, also the resources to go and to pull the research material. But what you're producing at the end is valuable to the government at the state level, at the Fed level. And it's ultimately, that is where their sell is. There's a product that is produced that people can look at and touch and say, you know what, I love it. I want to either hire you or pay you for gig work, and let's go and do this. And it's at that higher functioning level.
Right. So Ted, there's a lot I've thrown at you. Any questions, suggestions, comments about anything we've said this far?
I feel like this is pretty much the modus operandi for you, Kevin. In all the years I've known you, you're a connector, right? You connect things, and you help us dream about what if.
What if? No.
And as for my role, my wife is transitioning to a role to lead education in Vietnam for Apple. So I will not be here, but there are so many good people at Calbright who already are looking for innovation and innovative ways to create opportunities for our students, all students really, to have opportunities for apprenticeships, for internships, externships, for really not just the next job, but the one after that and the one after that, to really develop a career. So I have no doubts that if there's some intersection where I can help facilitate any initial conversations, that it'll continue.
Great. Well, and so I have a calendar of things. If you can't attend, we'd like to have the person next to you, or standing close proximity to the things we've talked about. Next Wednesday at 4 p.m. we're going to be doing a follow-up meeting with Kelly Mackey, who we met with yesterday, because we just dumped a lot of this stuff on her, and it was supposed to be a half-an-hour meeting. And
no, 15. It was 15 minutes, and then it expanded to 30. And then the stakeholders in the meeting kind of had to shut her down at an hour and say, we've got to go and do other things. And she was just going full steam,
right.
trying to take notes. And
right.
I think it relieved her tremendously that Kevin's like, it's okay, we've got this recorded, because it's rapid fire information and creation.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to share the recording of that meeting, because if we can
Yeah.
funnel some of this stuff so that she can understand it, it could possibly become a pilot as opposed to just a concept. So now we're talking to the people who can actually say, yeah, well, let's create a mold for this thing, and pour in the real people, whether it be consultants, administrators, faculty, and potentially 30 students. That's what I'm looking to do in my lifetime, is to find a pilot that we can actually have all the stakeholders and all the people in between, working on something that can be delivered to a client. And we have a project that in mind that the client would be the Department of Defense. And it's around this executive order that Harry Truman enacted in 1948 around the desegregation of the military, which is a 75th anniversary that will be in July 26, 2023. And it's a huge civil rights milestone for everybody, not just military people, but all the people who came from military families, and all the implications of things that we will be able to draw on from a research standpoint. But we have a lot of those artifacts, assets, and things that people can work on to build a timeline. And the timeline would start literally by just putting together the infrastructure and the technology around making this thing interactive, open sourced, and something that again just I say evergreen, but it could last as long as we're around. And that's kind of we're looking at. But agnostic of the content, we want a project that can have a client that would say, "Wow, job well done, students," because that's what I'm looking for from all my apprentices, to deliver a product to a real client on time, on scale, on budget.
But not even so much a client, an employer, because that entity is employing. Because we want to use the language that's going to grasp people. If it's a client, it's like, oh, there's another one. But when it's an employer, you're talking about wages or money being paid for work that is produced. However, if that person ends up being an entrepreneur, or they end up being enfolded into an organization, ultimately you're having well, they would be starting with Kevin as their employer. And then when you look at their skills and their fit and where their interest is, because from college that what people start with thinking that they want to do is not necessarily where they end up. It can be in a completely different direction.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And for us, because we don't offer degrees at all, it's just certificates and credentials towards employment. We're really looking at that experience with apprenticeship or with internships, externships, where their students are creating their portfolio, they're getting work experience, they're meeting deadlines, they're reflecting with others to develop their personal network. We're trying to provide all of that, because this is what will enable them to really take charge of their career later.
Right. Wow. It's the infamous practicum piece.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And Ted, you said you said that your wife's going to be kind of taking over this role. What is her deliverable, from Apple's perspective, for her impact on Vietnam education or workforce? What is it that she's going to be doing?
Well, Vietnam is an exciting place right now, where they have not traditionally had technology in schools, at least in the public schools. In the majority of private or international schools, there's plenty of technology, but the typical Vietnamese student isn't surrounded by technology yet. Most of the major cities have now really modernized, so they're asking themselves that grand "how might we" question of how might we prepare our citizens for the world of the future, their futures. And so she is going to be working with Apple on having those conversations about really trying to transform learning. And I would probably equate it to what American education was like about 15 years ago, where, maybe there's a classroom computer, but there's not this sense of, what does it do? How does it open the world? How does it prepare them for deeper thinking? So she'll be leading those conversations K-20. And I'm going to be following along.
Wow. Wow. As things develop, we're having a meeting with the Department of Defense regarding this campaign. And I know in the timeline of things that we're going to be researching is the Vietnam War and the aftermath of Vietnam War and all the things that we can actually, socialize as things that are interesting to people in the timeline, military, civilian, and not. So at some point, I'd like to think that we can offer up a part of the Vietnam timeline that, I don't know, who knows? I mean, from a creative tech position, could be something that somebody looks at and says, hey, maybe learners, even people who are makers could say, wow, what part did we have in this timeline?
Yeah.
And how can that be socialized? But just I always think about things that are not as though they were, and figure out how can we make connections with them, because everything I've done with you and all other people have been relation based, and sometimes you spark, sometimes you don't. But we're going to be meeting again with Dr. Malveaux. We haven't talked to her since you talked to her last year. Wow. And she now wants to update us on where the state of California is with mandatory ethnic studies, K through 12.
Yeah.
So, so I know we've had you on here for a while, but I'm going to send some more information, and maybe Renee, you can help to collate the things that may be interesting from this conversation to Ted. And so our meeting with Kelly is next Wednesday at 4:00.
I wrote it down.
And if you can make it, or somebody can make it, we just love to be able to have someone represent what your interest may be in helping us, provide some benefit to the 25 to 49-year-old. And I know that there's a large part of the community college audience that we're reaching at are over 24. Because I keep trying to talk to the people at, let's say, Santa Monica College and their promo pathway program for digital editors, but they're all over 24. They're all people who got in the promo pathway that have their BAs and BSs and just are now trying to get into a program that offers up a better pathway to work. So, I think a large part of the people that are in the community colleges are a lot older than people even imagine. But you guys just happen to have a mechanism to give people a chance to unlock their potential in ways that maybe other community colleges don't. And I know Kelly would probably like to know more about how that can become something that drives focus on what you guys do. Maybe you want to share, maybe you don't. But I mean, this is kind of what I want to do, is to try to rise tides for all boats, to float a little higher than they would without some knowledge sharing. So
yeah, I'd love to have more conversations about this. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if either Jenny Johnson or Michael Younger on my team have had some initial conversations with a variety of people, in your world, Renee.
I would agree. Yes.
Yeah.
I tried to get into my system, and it's just, I don't know, it's too slow today, whatever. But just the names that you're speaking of, it's like, I've seen that. I know a little bit. I want to go and investigate a little bit more, and technology is what it is.
Right. And one more date, Ted, one more date, February 28th, the last day of Black History Month. We're putting together a student-generated event. And I'd love to invite any students that you have to be able to participate, not just to watch it. So if there are any students who are interested, I'm recruiting students to be part of the February 28th. It's a meetup mixer. It's a showcase. And we're going to have the folks at UCLA and USC help us create a roundtable discussion with students involved. And we're going to try and broadcast it or narrowcast it. But I'd love to be able to have you guys participate online and really feature how people can not only learn, but participate one-to-one or one-to-many is an online experience. Because at the end of the day, everything that I'm going to do is going to be trying to reach people and move information without moving bodies around.
Yeah.
So,
if we can get a few students involved, that would be great. We actually just elected our first student government. So it's one of those things where it's like a chicken and egg moment, where we wanted student government earlier, but they had to have bylaws and a constitution written. which we're not willing to
Wow.
write, because then there's a disconnect. Why would we write it for the students? So we had to get volunteers first to work with our student engagement team to write them. And
Wow,
then
that would definitely, we want to feature them in one of the discussions. They were talking about panels, but I really like to have some innovative showcased material through individuals' faces.
Yeah.
Say, hey, here we are, and we decided that this was, what we want to do, and these are the processes that we use to govern ourselves. That would be a great case study for a lot of the other young people to figure out, students, not just young people, to
Right.
learn how to do something.
But that's really, you're talking about then the freedom, because do you want to, do you want to create and develop, or do you want something imposed upon you?
yes.
And they're not grasping that, well, if they deliver it to you, there's all, I mean, that's how somebody can take advantage of you so easily. And also then they're imposed by those boundaries and the nuances that are embedded within the contract versus, and it really is, it's using your executive learning functions to even understand how to create, how to develop, and how to produce an innovative product that you're, proud of and excited of, and that has value to the other party. So the school's going to have to look at whatever they produce and say yes or no. And you've got negotiation going on, which is
Wow.
always, that's
Yeah,
a big skill.
Yeah.
How did they form and develop? Was it all online? I mean, did they ever meet physically? Or, I
No,
mean,
it's all online. So
wow, that is a great, oh my God.
our manager of student and alumni engagement and relations basically met with them, found a few who volunteered and worked with them, and really made sure that we took what the template of the bylaws and constitution were, and then started thinking through, okay, how do we customize this for a fully online remote experience? Because not all of this applies, when it's talking about posting notices of meetings. We're not going to post it in the student union because there is no student union. But are there channels in the Slack, the student Slack community, that they could post things and then, basically train people to look there in the announcements for these things? So we had to write. Yeah, exactly.
The marketing connection.
And,
who's your audience? How do you connect with your audience? What percentage of your audience is going to buy in?
My God, I want to showcase this. The meeting I had just before this, it kind of rattled me a little bit. It was all these folks talking about the event February 28th, and nobody talked about any innovative ways to showcase what students are doing. And having a Slack channel and any other media channels that they may have, thought of to communicate to one to another or to other students or other people is something that I'd love to take an investigative look at what they've done and figure out what they want to do if they know that they can do it, especially with messaging. So, man, Ted, I've worn you out, but buddy, to whatever degree that you can show up, you bring so much more spiritually to the fight than anybody else I know, except for Renee. Renee's the new you.
Thank
but you all the other people just
Renee.
don't have any understanding of what it means to be a lightning rod of idea, thought, and what if to something that was tangibly received by the people who have to make the decisions, the policies, and the laws around student outcomes.
It's the rollback, and actually that it feeds right into what we're looking at as a broad brush of investigative journalism, because all you're changing is the topic. Is it something for Department of Defense? Is it something for what you were just mentioning, where you're looking at doing that investigation, or the Vietnam? It's like what you're producing at the end is something that somebody is going to buy. And you even may be that product that they purchase because you learn the capacity to create and develop and troubleshoot the product.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So any last, because I know we're way over time. Any last things you want to say, Renee, before we break contact?
Give me more. I'm in on this. Let's build it. Let's make it go. I love this kind of stuff. It's like, where are the, how can we intersect and interconnect in this crazy world? And just, we've got all the, different comparative cultures. You have your, what else would it be? Your cultural connectivity. But even just for the learners to engage in that platform in the digital world, but yet you have to be able to pivot and shift on a dime between in-person versus virtual. I mean, here I thought I was going to spend just an admin day, but no, this is, we're growing and we're having exciting things happen.
Man, so Ted, again, we'll put the invitation out there. I'm hoping it's you, not someone else, but we'll throw out the calendar invite so that we can, again, have some representation from Calbright. Okay.
Would you be a transition? I'm sorry, Ted, a transitional person, because I understand you're exiting the role that you're currently in. Someone else is going to sit in that seat, but I do think that your voice would be key as a transitional piece because of your longstanding relationship with Kevin and your subject matter expertise.
Yeah, I would definitely consider it. I'm actually going to work with Calbright in a reduced role until June 30th.
Oh,
okay.
So we have a little bit of time, but obviously from Vietnam, the hours are going to be much different. But there are some amazing people at Calbright who are leading this work, leading the relationships, and I just take it, try to amplify it. So I'm happy to do whatever I can.
Okay, thank you very much, Ted. Well, again, yeah, we'll send invites and see if we can get on the same accord. I know we will, but you'll know some of the faces. General Bray and Julianne Malveaux, they're all going to be part of what we're going to try and, put all this stuff together and bake something that somebody will eat or buy.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Nice meeting you, Renee.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Kevin,